I left college because I had a pretty severe eating disorder. And it was something that was not in my trajectory that I ever thought would happen. I grew up in a household where like food was given no power. We had a standard American diet. Like my mom never pressured us to eat anything. Like it was just very, like I felt like a very healthy relationship with food. And then I went off to college and I was one of the only people in my friend group that really had no idea what they wanted to do with their life. And I just like didn't have a calling. Like I watched my friends who wanted to be nurses and they were like, I'm going to be a nurse. I can't wait. That's my thing. Or teachers. I was struggling. I had no clue. That was a part of my world that was like out of control. I also had a high school boyfriend that things didn't go really well. And I was losing control of that. And then I tried to rush a sorority. And I didn't get into the sorority that I wanted, even though they had like done this whole process of like dirty rushing me and being so excited, like hyping me up. And then I didn't get it. So I had this like perfect storm of events. I had felt like I had zero control in my life. I was a junior at Penn State and I went out for a run and I did not like exercise. That was not my thing. And I got this like high of like, I'm in control. And then it just like took it to an extreme. Then I became extremely obsessive with what I ate. It almost felt like a high, honestly. Like I could control something in my life while everything else was like spiraling out. And within like a certain amount of months, I was like really harming myself. And my parents, obviously, like they're smart people. They saw what was happening. I was coming home every weekend because I was so unhappy. They were basically like, you need to leave school. Like it's too much. It was so hard for me to do that because I was like Miss Straight A student, Miss Perfectionist. I was my student government president. My life is going to be a perfect linear, like straight. I'm going to climb the top of the corporate ladder. Like that's going to be me.
But you weren't sure what corporate ladder it was going to be. I'm putting my experience on you. So to correct me if I'm wrong, school is a very clear trajectory. You know, you do this and A, you can do this, you get another A. If you don't know where you're going after that, it's meaningless. It feels like a meaningless climb to the top of what? What made you want to post about that and make that public? That's a very raw place to have been.
I was so embarrassed at first. Like I was mortified. I didn't want anyone to know. I had to go away for like a few months at a place because people would have been like, oh my God, Erin, it happened to her. Oh my God. Like that's what I was thinking. As my platform was growing, I kind of realized that I was learning and hearing more stories of other people my age of this happening too. And then I was like, you know what? I think there is value in me sharing this because like I need to get over the fact that I have this stigma in my head that like this is embarrassing, because I think that this can really help people because sure, it took me a while to get back to living a normal life. But I was at such a point when I started sharing it. It was like 6 years plus at that point. And I had done so much work and I wanted to share that it was possible that you could feel better and you could feel healthy again. And that didn't have to be your whole narrative and that didn't have to ruin your life. And that doesn't have to be it. Sure, you will have these things for the rest of your life. You will have to find a way to deal with. But there are so many ways and tools and things that I learned that I knew would be of value to share.
What was the point when you developed the eating disorder? What was the point when you realized that? And what does that moment like feel like? I have one of those things that you hear about that are dangerous or bad for people, and now I have to figure out what to do about it.
I was in complete denial at first, to the point where like I agreed that I would go see a therapist at my school at Penn State. And I went there with the intention of them not even talking about this at all. I thought maybe they were going to talk about like my anxiety. After a few sessions, she needed to refer me to an eating disorder specialist. And I remember being like, what? Like, I don't have an eating disorder. Like, that's not me. I'm not going to that appointment. I eventually like started to like be like, okay, I'm seeing an issue here. But then one of my doctors basically just said, you need to be on complete bed rest. Like I don't know if you're going to survive if you keep walking around. So that for me, I was like, okay.
It's triggering for a lot of people who are listening, who are eating disorder survivors and still deal with it. I'm being one of them. So I don't want to say how much weight you lost. Did you look weak and frail?
Yeah, I did. I've like since deleted all of the photos because it's just like not something that I ever really want.
So smart. Think about that all the time. I still have a couple pictures and I get conflicted when I see them. I'm like, I did that.
Right.
And there's half of me that's horrified and half of me that's impressed because that took a lot. I think it's really smart that you deleted them.
If I'm in a moment of weakness, I'm like, dang, I wish I could go back and look at what I looked like. There's always going to be some voice in your head, even for the average person. Like, bodies and the way we look is just a thing that we're gonna have to deal with for the rest of our lives. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had those photos. But then I'm like, no, you don't. Even though you were at that weight, you were actually a miserable human. You were miserable. You weren't fun to be around. You were 21 and you weren't going out because you were afraid of like calories, taking calories in. My life was not good at that point. So that's like kind of something I always try to remember too.